Depending on your time zone, good afternoon or good morning, everyone. And a very warm welcome to this Global Signage Alliance webinar about e-paper. My name is Mark Ossel, Chairman of the GSA, and I'm honored to be your moderator for today's session. We're diving into an exciting and forward-thinking topic, e-paper display technology. A screen that looks like a paper, consumes virtually no power, and remains perfectly readable in bright light. As digital signage continues to evolve, e-paper opens up new possibilities in retail, transportation, hospitality, and corporate environments, where silence, sustainability, and visual elegant communication is key. Today, we take a closer look at the technology and practical applications with experts in this field and discuss what this means for integrators, CMS providers, and end users. As you might have heard or read in the latest newsletter or on the website, the GSA has 4 committees which focus based on their background on specific areas of interest in digital signage. These are system integrations, hardware, software, and content. We invited the chairs of 3 committees to share their perspective on this topic and an expert on the subject matter as well. Let me introduce them. Next to me is Björn Pieper, Head of Hardware Committee, and we have online Dave Box, Head of System Integration Committee, Kevin Barglaken, Head of Software Committee, and our expert Miroslav Vukic. Welcome to you. So, Björn, let me kick off this with, we're all now again here. Let me kick off with asking you the first question, and that is that the word e-paper has been used already for many years. In fact, in 1974 it was used first time. What is new about this topic in relation to digital signage?
Yeah, thank you very much, Mark. I think that if you look at e-paper as a technology, indeed it's quite old. But the main difference nowadays is that it's actually usable in the environment we operate in. That means it's now bigger sizes and it has full color capabilities. That means that it is also capable to actually transmit images that we would like to do from a digital signage perspective. The older e-paper technologies, what you would still find, for instance, in supermarket shelves or on a Kindle e-reader, are black and white, often low contrast, and are just basic information. So nowadays, technology allows us bigger screens and full color capabilities.
So I guess that is as well the big difference between e-paper as people know it, like e-readers, and the current technology applied to digital signage.
Correct. So now it's actually applicable in the market we as GSA members operate up in.
So, Kevin, do you feel it's already being deployed? Have you already experienced with the new e-paper technology and devices?
Yeah, definitely. And even from a personal point of view, we've been deploying e-paper solutions across hundreds of retail locations already, primarily through electronic shelf labels, but even ESLs at their core are e-paper displays. They're just smaller, purpose-built for product pricing and shelf level info. But the tech behind them, the way they update, how they consume power, and how they integrate into backend system is the same as you'd find in larger e-paper signage.
So the market is already picking up. They understand the capabilities and the advantages. Do you see specific market segments picking it up faster than others?
Well, absolutely. And I said what we at EWQ have been focused on is retail. And retail has been a fast adopter of these e-paper solutions, starting from smaller e-paper solutions to now going to larger, even 32-inch or above solutions in e-paper. Absolutely. But retail is one of them. Hospitality, I see a great possibility. And as we all think also the restaurants. It's absolutely a growing space.
Thank you. So Davy, let me ask you, do you have some experience already with, as an integrator, with installing and integrating the latest e-paper devices?
Yes, we already deployed e-paper signage in environments such as retail, corporate meeting rooms, smart city applications. Now the focus has been on location where low power consumption and sunlight readability are key. So, for example, we installed them in room signage, in product info labels, and outdoor public info boards. A little bit like Kevin just mentioned.
Thanks, David. Miroslav, you as an expert, do you see this as a breakthrough which will disrupt the digital signage industry or not?
Okay, so first of all, I'd like to reiterate that, yeah, e-paper has been here for a while. We've seen it as e-readers and electronic shelf labels in large quantities. Now it's been entering new markets from workplace environment, corporate environment, to the retail, hospitality, museums, public transportation, and so on for a while. And yeah, it's picking up pace. Speaking about the breakthrough, I mean, breakthrough is kind of a big word because you would expect there's a moment in time where, you know, volumes jump from small quantities to really, really large quantities. And I'm not, let's say, I mean, I don't have sightseeing capability, so I cannot say if this is going to happen in the near future. But definitely with the advancement of the technology, with the new sizes, with the color, we do see that the portfolios are expanding, the applications are expanding, and as well the use cases that we see in the field, as well as the deployments.
Miroslav, if I am right, I pick up that sustainability, less energy consumption is an important element. But are there limitations with the new e-paper screens, if I may call them? Are there limitations, or could you just replace them for any kind of application?
I think the e-paper is more of a complementary technology to the traditional screens, you know. So sometimes LCDs and LEDs can be replaced with e-paper, but in majority of cases, e-paper is there more as static information. It's not dynamic, it's not changing. Videos are not really available yet. So in majority of cases, I think it's an excellent complement, but not an exact substitute for the existing screens.
So the refresh rate, it's, as you said, it's not for too dynamic. So Björn,
Yes.
Is that a limitation of hardware, or is that by design of the technology being used?
At the moment, it's a technology limitation. So there are two main technologies that are used, which is the Kaleido 3 and Spectra 6, and it's the refresh rate. So changing a picture from A to B can take up to like 17 seconds just to change a new picture. And that means that dynamic content is not possible. But as Miroslav just said, if you look at it from a opportunity point of view, it's an extension to what we currently already have. So yes, you can replace some screens, like a menu board as an example, or a traditional poster, but it would allow us as digital signage experts to extend our offering into paper replacement. So instead of where we now need to drive out and install a poster, you can now customize this poster and bring it to the individual locations and personalize it a bit. So I see it as an opportunity for members of GSA to do more business.
So what kind of refresh rate would you say people need to have in mind if they consider applications?
So if you look at, in my opinion, a proper use case is that if you have content which, let's say, changes 3 times a day, like a morning menu, an afternoon menu, or an evening one, those would be applicable environments. But bear also in mind that if we're looking at replacing posters, in many cases a poster is hanging there for like a month. So the actual use case of content changes is once a month. And if we can increase that from a retail point of view, from an advertising point of view, to once a week, then we already have a lot of gain to have been made.
Thank you, Kevin. You have already built up some experience. Do you see this as well as a difference, the limitation in refresh rate in the applications you used?
Yeah, it's a really great point in thinking that, well, e-paper and traditional paper signage and traditional digital signage, they differ from a lot of point of views. And when e-paper doesn't have the luxury of just the high refresh rates or of backlighting or animations to grab attention, so everything needs to be more clear and instantly readable. So that's where more static content really shines. So great contrast, strong font choices, layout simplicity make a huge difference in this case. So the applications utilizing e-paper solutions need to be conscious of these refresh rate differences.
Can you give some examples of use cases where it does fit the purpose?
Yeah, so some use cases, they differ from, of course, industry to industry, but most or the best use cases would be those where the content is updated on a regular basis, but this regular basis isn't something that happens every few seconds. So these are product pricing informations, menus, different types of informations that you would need to show if you're looking at large scale companies, or even let's say a bus. You might have hundreds of boards or displays, or actually paper signs that you have to change, but it doesn't change constantly. But when it does, it's a huge cost to that company to start changing them. So for these types of applications where you need orchestration level control and you have a large fleet of devices, it's easier to manage them with an e-paper solution.
Yeah, and I assume it goes along with it. In fact, you show stills. You don't show moving video clips or whatever. It's in fact a still, which then might be replaced. Well, as Björn said, a few times a day, but not on a very high rate.
Yeah, and a few changes a day might be a bit low even. They can be 20 times a day, but as long as it's not every other second, it is kind of the point.
Okay. Hey, Davy, in your experience, what kind of use cases you already have deployed e-paper displays?
Well, for example, for the room signage, which Kevin also explained, it's a very easy way to install the e-papers, because the room findings, they don't change very often. So, but when they do change, same example as what Kevin just says, you need someone to go and change it at every location. And in this case, it can happen automatically just by controlling it remotely. So this is a very easy way to get the e-paper out there and try to get it into the corporate environment.
And regarding your experience with installing digital signage, is there a significant difference, advantage, disadvantage, comparing traditional screens with the e-paper screens?
Well, I think Miroslav already mentioned it for a moment. You can't replace all LFD screens or the digital signage screens with e-paper screens, because they can't really have dynamic content on it. So in all locations where you have static content which changes on a regular base but not dynamically very often, e-paper is a lot easier to install over there and to have it used in those environments. The only thing you have to be sure of is that they have a stable Wi-Fi or a good LAN-based infrastructure.
And regarding maintenance, is there a difference in remote maintenance of even checking the status compared to traditional screens?
Well, the traditional screens, most CMSs can remotely control the digital signage screens, With the e-papers, that's a little bit different. Not all the CMSs are already up to speed with it. As we previously said, you need an API to get the content onto the e-paper screens. So same thing for the remote management. It's a little bit more difficult there, but I think we're moving forward, and in the near future we will be able to easily maintain those e-paper screens via specific CMSs that can access them via remote software.
And Miroslav, if I may ask you, is your experience that the market really understands where they should now deploy and where it makes sense to deploy e-paper screens versus traditional? And what are the main business drivers? Is it sustainability? Is it cost? Is it maintenance? Can you share some of your experience regarding the market?
Of course. I would say that still one of the main USPs, let's say, is the sustainability. So main benefit for a customer that really wants to adopt the e-paper is the sustainability, is the low maintenance, as was mentioned before, easy installation, because in many cases you don't even need wires. You can just bring the device to a specific location. If it runs on Wi-Fi, if it has a battery life of multiple months and rechargeable battery, in that case, you know, it's really simple to just mount it with a magnetic mount and leave it there. Sometimes you need a secure wall mount, obviously, if it's a public space, so that basically no one can steal the screen. But otherwise, the maintenance of the device is relatively easy. But one of the main benefits is definitely that it's still 99% more energy efficient than the traditional screens. And you know, it's bistable technology. It doesn't consume power when it's not changing the content. And these are the most, let's say, most relevant points when considering installations. And I would really like to reiterate what David said before as well. You know, it's for specific applications. It's simply brilliant use, such as in meeting room management, you know, when you can connect with simple systems or more complex systems from G Suite, Office 365, and so forth. You can simply have the device in front of a meeting room, and it can change according to the calendar solution. But we were mentioning a lot of other use cases before that are really good fit as well, from outdoors, where you can have solar panels and you can have basically self-running public information displays with real-time arrivals, or you can have in the retail environment very good poster quality colors now. So yeah, there's a lot of benefits that are now becoming clearer to the customers, and this means that they are more acquainted with the technology, and it's not something that that's not well known anymore.
Thank you. Kevin, if I may ask, on the software side, are there many CMS platforms already available which support this new technology, or is it still a bit struggle early market, or is it seamlessly integrated with most of the CMS platforms which are available?
Yeah, so I'd say there's multiple CMS platforms that do offer e-paper solutions out of the box, and there's a few ones that are being custom made for just e-paper. But that said, when you look at the broader CMS landscape, most platforms aren't fully equipped for e-paper just yet, especially when it comes to scale, when it comes to scale or dynamic content. And a lot of setups rely on proprietary tooling, which often makes sense because the hardware and the software are tightly coupled, but also means you're juggling with some limitations, like how layouts are structured, how much control you have over the rendering process, or how updates are triggered and prioritized. And it really depends on the scale you're working with. For a smaller deployment, some systems will do the job, but once you're talking about tens or hundreds or even thousands of devices, and you want dynamic, automated, data-driven content, you need more flexibility and control. That's kind of part of the reason we've even started building our own CMS. We wanted something that treats e-paper as a first-class citizen and lets us reuse the same layout logic across ESL, signage, e-paper, digital signage. That shared foundation is powerful when you're scaling or trying to reduce day-to-day management efforts.
Thanks, Kevin. So Björn, if I think of hardware, I understood there are basically two basic technologies and only a few suppliers of that core technology. How do manufacturers, assuming there are now a number of manufacturers, how do they differentiate, or are all the e-papers the same? Or is it huge difference between one and another?
Well, to be honest, I would say if you are new to the market, definitely try out a few vendors. Yes, the panel itself is in most of the cases from the same manufacturer, but it is the housing, it's the type of technology which is implemented. Is it battery powered or is it power over Ethernet? Does it have Bluetooth or only Wi-Fi? So those types of differences you would find. Then of course on the software side, what are the APIs? Is it only the API to bring content to the screen, or can you also return the information from the e-paper itself? And there's one maintenance question as well. So when you look at e-paper, colors are actually degrading over time. So different than for LCD, you do need to update an e-paper from time to time in order to make sure that the color quality remains on par. So that is one of the big differences. The other thing what I want to tap on, I'm talking now, we were talking about eco-friendliness and the footprint. So I definitely agree to all the points that was made. One of the other points which I would like to add is that if you look at e-papers and you look at the power consumption, it also means heat. So if you have a bigger organization and you have deployed hundreds of LCD monitors and you're capable to reduce, let's say 25% by e-paper, you will also utilize less energy, one. Two, also your air conditioning needs to bring in a lot less power in order to cool the room. And I cannot tell you out of experience, it would be amazing if in this room we had some electronic paper displays instead of monitors.
Thank you. Yeah, it's getting warm here on a sunny day. Let me jump to content again. Triggers my mind, Jaroslav, that Miroslav, on content, while we said it's more for static versus dynamic content, does it mean that somebody can take the image they used for a poster and just put them on the screen? Or are there certain design limitations or new ways of designing and taking advantage of e-papers versus what they basically in the past used as a poster? What is it from a content perspective and the design and layout?
Mm-hmm. Okay, that really depends on the provider and of the products themselves, but generally tapping into content, there are multiple ways to show content on the e-paper. Speaking from my experience, from the technology that we have, it's be it from a CMS that is compatible with the e-paper, and there are quite a few on the market that can show different kind of information, and you can schedule the content, you can monitor everything. So this is already one option. A lot of applications also use simple HTML. So basically, any information that you can show in a browser can be shown on the display. And in this case, for example, I know that a lot of passenger information systems are running. So real-time arrivals, just constantly refreshing on a minute or two. And this is a bit of an extreme, let's say, because we know that we don't want to change the content too often, but still. Some content-wise, any proper content management system that has integrated e-paper technology within their portfolio should be able to do a lot of content scheduling and creating different kinds of content for the displays.
Thank you. So Davy, I'm assuming that this basically opens as well new markets where it's not, as we said earlier, not just a replacement for a screen, but it's new applications which were not covered by digital signage in the past because the cost, the location, the physical things, and so on and so on. So it opens new markets. I'm assuming for you as a company as well, you need now to put your Salesforce or add Salesforce to completely different potential customers, like marketing agencies, advertising agencies who gonna move from putting a poster on somewhere now to think about e-papers. Is that truly a new market you're gonna enter with this new kind of technology?
Well, we certainly try to get into new markets because, as said previously, all the big companies are really into sustainability and green power consumption. So this e-paper really follows up on that topic, and they are all interested in it. But as we said previously, it can't really replace a complete fully digital signage LCD screen. So you have to make them aware very clearly that, okay, there is a very low power consumption, but there are also limitations on the dynamic of the content, of the colors of the content. As Bjorn just mentioned, if you're using colors and you're having it on the screen for quite a while, you also need to refresh that page again. So there is a really large market out there, but they need to be very aware of what the pros and the cons are and how they're going to implement it in their business.
Thanks. Björn, do you believe it is already a mature market, a mature product and development, or is it still a bit bleeding edge where people are finding out what the limitations and opportunities are?
I think the products that you find now in the market are mature, and you can use them definitely. And there is a wide selection, what we just mentioned, from smaller size monochrome displays to multicolor displays. The 32-inch is now definitely something which is becoming like a mainstream product. I've seen 75 inches, I've seen 43 inches, so I know there is more and more sizes coming. I also know they're still experimenting. Experimenting is not the right word, but trying to make the production process better and better to get a better quality on par. But when it comes to the 32-inch, I definitely believe that if there is demand and opportunity, it is a product which you can use and can sell without any fear, if that makes any sense.
Okay. Davey, another question which triggered in my mind is cost and business case. If we, as we just said, look at replacing traditional posters, where people go on the truck road, on the truck to replace it and so on, versus the e-papers, are prices already getting to the point where there is a business case to replace traditional posters, or doesn't it come yet to that price level? Having in mind as well the limitations in size available. What is the business cases where you see it already changed people's behavior in their buying decision?
I think that currently this is in the market. In the minds, they are changing to the largest size of e-papers, and I think there is a return of investment already. But the thing that the businesses have to consider is what we just mentioned, are the cons, where you don't have the full color spectrum, which makes it a little bit a difference to really fully go for it. But this will change in the near future. So once we can access a full color scheme on those large size 75-inch displays, I think that the return of investment will be more than large enough to have all the businesses start investing in the e-papers, in the large scale e-papers, to replace posters.
Now, you're all very positive about this new technology and stating it's picking up and lots of use cases where it's applicable. But Kevin, what are from a software perspective, your biggest challenges to date, if there are any? Or is it all smooth and ready to run, or are there some challenges?
That's actually a fantastic question, and There's a few overlooked challenges that I would say, and the big one, at least from my point of view, from the software side, is large scale deployment. As said, when you're managing hundreds or thousands or even hundreds of thousands of e-paper displays, you can't rely on just basic update scripts or some manual tooling anymore. Most systems out there operate with proprietary protocols or closed loop tools that are really built for horizontal scaling. From our experience, we are currently pushing a few billion updates a month to end devices, so scaling horizontally without overwhelming our internal or external networks can be a core design challenge for an individual. It's a bit of a balancing act. You want to batch updates, throttle intelligently, maybe even queue and prioritize content, but you also want to guarantee delivery, especially in mixed environments where some devices might be running over Zigbee, some other on Wi-Fi, or even LoRa in harder to reach areas. And the kicker is, it's not the bandwidth that kills you, it's the orchestration. Making sure every device gets what it needs, exactly when it needs it, without flooding the infrastructure.
Is this only software
e-paper looks simple on the
limitations?
surface, but it's just black and white pixels, right? But managing a global fleet of them, that's a software engineering problem, not just a display problem.
Is that mainly a software limitation, or is it also related to hardware limitations?
I would say
Björn, you want to comment on that?
Yeah, I think that one of the things that we need to make because I heard Zigbee, LoRa, which definitely are the transportation protocols when it comes to ESLs as an example. I think that we need to segregate the two of them when it comes for our audience. If you have bigger scale, you're 32 inches, 75 inches, they communicate via Wi-Fi or power over Ethernet. Whereas your ESLs, which indeed, and then you get to also the large number of updates which you were just mentioning, price updates, product updates, stock updates. That's where you are looking at LoRa, looking at Zigbee. So it's a different type of communication protocol. So it's hardware, but it's mostly related to network infrastructure. It's reporting back, and that's where the challenges are that Kevin was mentioning.
Thank you. Now, if I give each of you the floor based on the question that you meet somebody and who's interested, what is the advice you would give somebody running a business, is considering, you heard the word e-paper, is considering it, what is the advice you would give to them? Let me start with Björn, and the other gentlemen can think about their answer to the same question. What would you give as advice to a newbie in this world with regards to e-paper?
So I would ask two questions. The first question is indeed, what is your use case? What problem are you going to try and solve? Because that's where you then would define the amount of changes, the location, the cost benefit, return on investment, etc. And the other advice I would give is, don't just walk to your regular vendor, look in the market. There are multiple vendors out there that all create, based on the same technology, their own hardware SKUs with different types of sets of functionality, with also their own rendering engines. So what is the quality of the images that gets onto the display? And play with a few of them. Don't make an overnight decision. That's the advice I would give.
Thank you. Davy, can I ask your advice to newbies?
Well, my advice would first of all be that to make sure that they are well aware of the fact that the e-paper, while it is very low consumption on electricity, is still not a fully replacement for digital signage. They need to be very aware of the fact what e-paper can do for them. And once they realize that, I think it will be a lot easier for them to create a use case and to make sure that if they're going to replace any screens within their company, that the e-paper is actually used for its positive things, which is also the low power consumption, but mainly the fact that you can use it in your advantage and you don't have to pay as much as the digital signage screens they're currently paying.
Thank you. Kevin, can I give the floor to you?
Yes, I would probably go after questions like, how does the content get generated? Can it be dynamic or data-driven? What file formats are required? And does the system support automation? Can you control everything remotely, or are updates manual? These are the kind of things that make or break an e-paper solution long-term. Also, I wouldn't underestimate the layout design, because e-paper doesn't have the motion or the backlighting. Your content has to be clean, well-structured, and legible at a glance. And the software needs to help with that. Ideally, adapting layouts based on different content types, not just exporting static images. So in short, I'd say look behind the screen, focus on the content flow, backend integration, and how easy it'll be to manage when you have maybe a few hundred of devices out there.
Thanks, Kevin. Miroslav, your advice.
I think everything the gentlemen have mentioned so far is spot on. There are many things that customers and integrators need to consider before going forward with deployments. And the use case is the most obvious one, because we really need to understand what the customer will use the screens for. And based on that, we can then suggest or advise if it's appropriate or not, and which kind of e-paper is appropriate. Because as Bjorn mentioned before, we do need to do segregations based on the necessity or demand from the client, what they require. Is it for an e-shelf label? Is it for digital signage purposes? Is it for managing corporate environment or for bus stops? So yeah, understanding really the customer needs is crucial.
Thank you very much. Thank you all very much for your advice and insight. To conclude, I must say that what I take from this webinar is that e-paper is already mature. If I listen to each of you, there are use cases, they are being deployed. It is not bleeding edge technology. Sure, the screens will get bigger, the prices will drop, but they're available today for those specific use cases where it makes sense and where the refresh rate on the screens is only, let's say, limited. It's not to compare and replace all the digital screens which are out there, but for the specific purpose with more static information, it's a very sustainable solution. Thank you very much for sharing your insights in this GSA webinar, and see you next time. Bye-bye.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.